Hi, we're live at the Potato Expo right here on Facebook Live. Now, I want you to turn your head, not you, but Connor, over to what's going on at Potatoes USA. Now, we picked the worst location we could. I mean, it's sort of like the best location, but the worst location, because what they have is they have this, go ahead and play golf. They have this animation something that, just listen to this for a second. So that's what I've got to cope with for the next 2.5 days. Everybody in potato world coming here to see how good that they can play golf. But I've got something even more exciting than that. With me is Professor Jesse Ausubel from Rockefeller University in New York City. Now, Jesse, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome. And I want to tell you what I'm so interested in is your field of study, where it's environmental science and technology. Really, the combination, which I would imagine is a relatively new technology, but what you're looking at, from what I understand, is decades and centuries of agriculture. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, first, let me say, I want to try the golf using a potato.
Okay, that would be good. Are they using potatoes or golf balls? No, they're using golf balls. Okay.
Well, about 25 years ago, a colleague of mine and I asked the question, how much land could 10 billion people spare for nature? There are about 7 billion people on the planet now. People think it'll go up to 9 or 10 billion. And at the time, most people thought, well, there's not going to be enough arable land, not enough cropland. We're going to have to cut down the rest of the forests, irrigate more deserts. And as we started to look into it, we found that rather than running out of cropland, running out of arable land, that because of improving technology in agriculture, rising yields and other kinds of practices improving, we came to believe that humanity right now is very near to peak use of farmland. People sometimes talk about peak oil because we're running out of oil or because cars are more efficient. Well, maybe we're near peak farmland because farmers have gotten really, really good at what they do, and potato farmers are just a great example of this.
So before we get to the potato example, 2 questions. So you talk about arable land, what about water? You know, I hear a lot about running out of clean water, water that we can really use for not only farming, but for drinking. Is that the same situation?
It's a similar situation. Americans, in fact, now use less water than we used in 1975. We withdraw less water. And the reasons are similar in that the water use efficiency in agriculture has gone way, way up. Irrigated agriculture, most potatoes are irrigated. It used to be that people would irrigate before a rainstorm. Now we have better weather forecasts. Now people put sensors in fields that tell, in a field, even within a field, you don't water the whole field. You just irrigate the parts that are dry. So not just in potatoes, but corn and soy, the water use has gotten more efficient, and so we're actually withdrawing less water. We still withdraw a lot, but we're withdrawing less water. And in general, we believe that agriculture can become greener and greener in the sense that it can spare land, it can spare water, it can use less herbicide, less pesticide, while having higher productivity. And the reason is it's the 21st century, it's the information century, and so we say farmers are adding bits and bytes and bandwidth. They're not adding more tons of fertilizer, more gallons of water.
So I would assume, based on what you're saying, is that your premise is not what I keep on hearing, that we're going to run out of food, that we've got to do all these biotechnology solutions, that because of the efficiency of farming of all kinds, that we're going to have enough food.
We do believe in fact, there's a global surplus of protein and calories. If you look at all of the land that's being used to produce ethanol and alcohol to feed cars, you know, every car has a pasture of an acre or 2 now. It's ridiculous. An area the size of Iowa or Alabama is used to produce fuel for cars in America. If you look at that, if you look at the food waste, something like a third of the food that's grown in the world.
NRDC says 40%,
is just wasted, either rotting in fields in poor countries or thrown out in restaurants and homes in rich countries. And of course, I've just had a very nice lunch, but we have obesity too.
But hopefully you cleaned your plate.
I did. But if we had, we think that actually there's more agriculture on the planet than we now need. You could actually have less farming, smarter farming using fewer inputs and allowing more land to be in a relatively natural state.
So I'm going to ask a stupid question. Why isn't this message getting out there? We keep on hearing all kinds of information that we're running out of food, that we don't know how to feed. Certainly the waste factor is very real. But how come this story about smart farming, my term, not necessarily yours, isn't getting out there so that people say, hey, let's invest in technology. You know, we hear everything about the Paris climate, global warming, all this stuff. Why isn't this specific message not getting out there?
I think it is starting to get out, and the fact that the Potato Expo, the Potato Summit of the United Potato Growers of America wants to hear about this in detail is an indication of that. And I actually think a lot of the farmers and the growers now understand this. I think on the public, part of it is that there's always a market for bad news, you know, going back to the Old Testament and Jeremiah. Right. So if somebody says the world is going to end, there's always a crowd listening. But I think it is starting to get out, and really it's the same technologies that are being talked about in Silicon Valley or the Pentagon, same ones here for potato growers. It's sensors, precision, autonomy, all of these things which are revolutionizing hotels and Airbnb, asset sharing of assets, higher asset utilization, all these same technologies which are making buildings more efficient, which are making cities more efficient, which are making all kinds of companies in the industrial sector more efficient, are transforming agriculture too.
So when I look at the global landscape, I hear a lot about vertical farms. You know, farms that are being built in 100 stories high, buildings with, whether it's solar, whether it's hydroponics and so on. Are we going to head in that direction?
I like to say we're heading toward landless agriculture. That's not to say agriculture with no land, but agriculture using less and less land. And in the extreme, of course, you can have skyscrapers filled with bean sprouts or watercress. I don't think that'll be used to grow potatoes or wheat or the great cereals and grains that provide 80% of the protein and calories. But we can get much higher yields. The top yields in corn, for example, are 4 times the American average, top yields of American corn farmers. So there's lots of headroom, and the same is true in the potato sector. The most productive growers, the smartest growers, have tremendous yields. So the headroom to lift yields is still very much there.
Well, Professor, thanks so much. What your message is fabulous, not only for the potato growers, but for all of our audience out in Facebook Live land. So there's some good news on the horizon as it comes to agriculture, but keep watching this guy, because this whole combination of agriculture, environmental science, and technology, this is the future. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with more from the Potato Expo Live.